Now, Mercedes-Benz's lineup of electric vehicles have been catching some heat because of the way they look. And I get it, they aren't the best looking Mercedes vehicles. But that hasn't stopped anyone from buying them because I've seen more Mercedes EQ vehicles on the road than BMW i's or Audi e-trons. The EQS sedan and the EQS SUV kicked off the top end of the EQ lineup, but now we have a more affordable EQ. My name is Omar and this is the Mercedes EQE, or EQ as the Mercedes-Benz voice assistant calls it, because every time I start it up, she goes, "Hello EQ guest," and I think it's hilarious. Alright, the EQE. Right off the bat, I'm just going to go ahead and say it. This is not only one of the more affordable EQs, but it's also one of the better driving ones. Now don't get me wrong, the EQS sedan and the EQS SUV are extremely comfortable vehicles, but beyond that, they didn't give you any connection with the road. The EQE here, on the other hand, feels a bit more dynamic and nimble, and even though this is based on the same platform as the EQS sedan and the SUV, this just feels better to drive. Now that could be due to the fact that the wheelbase has been shortened, but this just feels and drives more like a normal Mercedes-Benz rather than an electric one. Nonetheless, this still has some quirks and flaws that its bigger EQS siblings have. For example, the rear wheel steer is extremely sensitive, so whether you're driving around town or on the highway, the steering and the turning radius just feels a bit awkward at times. And then this also does the whole self-depressing brake pedal thing. If you have the energy recuperation turned on, that will just throw off your braking perception by a bit. But other than those two things, this, in my opinion, is the one you want to get if you enjoy driving. So, what are we working with here? The one I'm driving here is the EQE 500 4MATIC. This has two PSM electric motors, and working together they make a total of 402 horsepower and 633 pound-feet of torque. One motor sits up at the front and one sits at the back, making this all-wheel drive, and that's why it has the 4MATIC badge. Now, you can get this in a more affordable version, the EQE 350, but that only makes 288 horsepower, and I haven't driven the 350, but it sounds like it'll be a little boring. The EQE 500 though, this feels great. 0 to 60 takes you 4.5 seconds, which isn't bad at all. And if you pop it into sport mode and step on it, this thing takes off. It throws you back in the seat like most electric cars do and puts a smile on your face while you listen to the whole vivid flux sounds that it makes, which makes it sound like it's from outer space. And I think Mercedes is doing the best with these EV sounds. Vivid Flux is still my personal favorite. Just listen to it. It sounds like you're in outer space. It sounds great. Now you can also get this in an AMG version, the EQE AMG, and that makes like 617 horsepower and will do 60 in 3.2 seconds, which is impressive, but it only gets a range of like 225 miles on a good day when everything is working properly and your life is perfect and you have a charging station that's perfect and the weather is perfect and the roads are perfect. You know, otherwise, let's just call it like 200 miles. Now the other two 4MATIC models, the EQE 350 4MATIC and the EQE 500 4MATIC that I'm driving here, will give you 260 miles of range. But if you want the most range, you'll have to go for the base EQE 350 Plus with a single motor, and that will give you a total range of 305 miles on a full charge. Honestly, I'm looking forward to the days where you go out and buy an electric vehicle and go for the higher trim levels, but actually get more range instead of less and less. That said, overall drivability here is solid. The handling is good. The acceleration is definitely impressive. Yes, it does have some weird things about it, but it does everyday life a little bit better than its older siblings. Now, if you're somebody that's about to comment, "Oh, that range sucks," then don't go for the EQE. Just get yourself a regular E-Class that will give you well over 450 miles of range on a full tank of gas, and just forget about going electric. Not to mention, you'll save yourself some headaches along the way. Speaking of headaches, charging this actually didn't cause me any, which is unusual. This thing charges pretty quick. If you end up at a DC fast charging station, Mercedes says that you can go from 10 to 80% in 30 minutes. Now, I ended up at the charging station with around 20 or 30% of battery, and it took me about 50 minutes to get to 100%, which not too bad. That said, in terms of rivals, this doesn't really have much competition out there. This is bigger than the Tesla Model 3 and the BMW i4, The only electric vehicle I can think of off the top of my head is the G80 Electrified. Now, personally, this is just my opinion, I think the Genesis G80 Electrified looks better than this. This kind of just looks blobbish. I'm not going to go too crazy into detail about the way this looks, but keep in mind this looks the way it does to get the lowest coefficient drag possible. And in my opinion, when science steps on the toes of the designer's freedom, this is what you get. But yeah, like every other EQ model, I like the rear end a lot more than the front. It's like all EQ models have a really attractive rear end, but then you walk around the front and you realize they all have a butterface. It's like you see one of these in the parking lot and you're like, oh, that's nice. And then you want to see it some more, so you walk around front and then you go, oh no, what happened there? Coefficient drag, aerodynamics, that's what happened. Now, this does look less weird than the EQS sedan, and personally I think the EQS SUV doesn't look like an SUV, it looks more like a minivan. Nonetheless, the E-Class just looks better than this. Why can't we just have an electrified version of the E-Class? Is that too much to ask for? Now, on the other hand, the interior of this is much better than the one on the E-Class. No matter what anyone says about the exterior of the EQ models, I think we can all agree that the EQ EVs have the best interiors out there in the EV segment. Everything in here feels super nice and really well built. There's no cheapening out of materials in the sake of going EV. Everything feels very Mercedes and very well put together. You have these really nicely designed leather seats that are extremely comfortable and are heated as standard no matter which trim you go for. Now, if you fancy yourself some ventilated front seats or a heated steering wheel, that will cost you extra. You do get dual zone climate control as standard, but if you want to upgrade to 4-zone climate control, again, that will cost you extra. And of course, like other EQ models, optionally you can get the energizing air control plus that will filter out bad smells and toxins from the cabin. Of course, that's the reason why the EQ models don't have a frunk, because that's where all the HEPA air filtration system lives. Which is cool, I guess, but I've never been in a car going, oh my God, these toxins, they're killing me, I can't breathe. I guess what I'm trying to say is that I'd rather have some bad toxins and a frunk than no frunk at all. Now let's talk tech. If you haven't noticed already, my test model here doesn't have the giant hyperscreen setup. This just has a giant tablet in the middle and a digital gauge cluster display right in front of me. And around that, you just have dash all over. And to be honest, I kind of like this setup a little bit more because no one sitting in the passenger side will ever use this screen. Come on. Not to mention this setup here will just have less fingerprints and glare. So in the middle, you have your center display, which houses the MBUX infotainment system. And just like the hyperscreen, you have two themes that you can pick from. I like the classic theme better. It's just easier to get around. In terms of usability, I think it's a pretty solid system overall. Nothing too confusing going on here. You get standard wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, which is what most people use nowadays. And then on this screen, you have the ability to dive in and change some of the weird EQ sound experiences. Now, this also has the whole fingerprint sensor to load up additional profiles. That's a really cool way to do it. And then you have your EQ pages where you can go in and manage your energy usage. You can turn off certain areas that are using a lot of the battery and decreasing your range. By the way, I have heard that there's some kind of waitlist or backorder on EQ models with the hyperscreen. Apparently, there aren't enough screens for everyone, so you can't get the hyperscreen on the 2023 EQE for now. Now, in terms of driver assist tech, yeah, you've got it all. You have the whole Mercedes pre-safe front and rear cross traffic and blind spot alert and all the alerts you'll ever need. You get lane keep assist, lane tracing assist, and adaptive cruise control, so this will be able to steer yourself while you chill for just a few seconds, and then it'll warn you, put your hands back on before I shut the whole car off and pull over and all that stuff. Now, in terms of the camera game, I'm really digging the recent moves Mercedes has been making in that area. You have a ton of different angles. Forget the whole 360 view, that's for babies. You get a full 3D view even when you're just trying to park this. The whole camera game in here is very, very useful. All right, now let's pull over and hop in the back and check out the practicality and comfort that you're working with in the rear seats. Today is just one of those days where nothing is going right. It's super windy, my mic died, so I had to go buy a new one, but we've made it this far now. So hop in the back of the EQE and you're working with a total of 38.2 inches of legroom. I'm about 6 foot tall. That is my seating position. As you can see, I have a good amount of room. It is actually pretty spacious and very comfortable back here. Now, one thing that I did notice is that you're not able to get heated seats in the second row or cooled seats, and that could be due to some kind of shortage, but I went on Mercedes-Benz's website, built one out, and there was no option to add heated seats in the second row. So I don't know if that's a thing that's with the EQE from here on out, or if it's just due to a shortage. Just won't shut off. See, even the car's interrupting me today. Jeez. All right, now let's check out the cargo capacity. Now, I don't have official figures, but to get in, you just push the Mercedes-Benz logo and it pops up and you have a good amount of room. I think you could fit 2 big suitcases in here, no problem. That's just all my filming junk, but yeah, it's nice and spacious. All right, so before we get into the pricing details and whether or not if you should buy one, let me point out a few important daily ownership highlights that I'd love to show all of you. You have a total of 4 cup holders in here. The 2 in the front right here are actually pretty cool. You can push them aside if you don't need them. And if you do, you just push down and they will deploy. You can also just take out this whole area and have yourself some extra storage. But I like cup holders, so I'm just gonna leave those there. And in the back, you have 2 cup holders in the center armrest. Door close sound from the outside. And the inside, solid. Since it's windy outside, let's check out the keys while sitting inside. Here they are, and they're very nice. I love these set of keys. By the way, when you lock and unlock the EQE, it makes a really, really cool sound. I pointed it out in my EQS SUV review, so check that out. I would love to show you the sound, but I can't because the wind is like 18 to 20 miles an hour outside, so you won't hear anything. And of course, let's hear the indicator and horn sound test. Indicator first. Same old Mercedes indicator. Now for the horn sound. Oh yeah, solid. So, should you get yourself an EQE? Well, not to discredit the EQS at all, but this just feels like a smaller EQS, and you don't really lose out much on the rear legroom. So, if I was to get one, I'd save myself some money and go for the EQE. Now, while the EQS starts at over $102,000, the EQE here starts right under $75,000, making that price tag much easier to handle. If you decide to go for the EQE 500 4MATIC like I'm driving here, you're looking at right under $86,000. And then if you want more speed and more range anxiety, you can go for the EQE AMG, and with that you're looking at around $107,000. Now, of course, I think the EQE 350 4MATIC makes the most sense, and I think that's the one that people will go for the most, but keep in mind, it is slow with a 0 to 60 time of over 6 seconds. I just expect a $75,000 plus Mercedes to be quicker than that. By the way, it's not like you're getting less range compared to the EQS. Both the EQE and the EQS trims have the same exact range on a full charge. So yeah, if you really want an electric car, and if you're someone that's like, I will only drive a Mercedes Benz, then this is a great option. If you're not that person, then the world is your oyster. Personally, I would just go for the E450 or the E53 and just wait for the next generation of the EQE to seriously consider going electric with Mercedes-Benz. Either way, thanks for watching. Make sure you hit like, make sure you hit subscribe, make sure you follow me on Instagram and on TikTok. My handle is @OmarDrives. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Take care. Peace. I don't know what's going on in front of me. People are just going, somebody's car broke down. That's what's going on. All right, anyway. Sport mode. Vivid Flux! Mercedes-Benz has done the best job with these, electric sound profiles. I like BMW's Hans Zimmer collab, but this to me just sounds a little bit better. Even when you brake, it does like this outer space type of sound. It sounds so cool.